Hey there YouTube, Travis here. So in this video I'm going to talk about mixing two-stroke fuel for vintage mopeds. I'm going to show you how I like to do it, and I'm going to try and discuss my side of the story for a couple topics that are open to debate. So some of us have mixed fuel before. Maybe we have like a weed eater like this one, or a chainsaw, or a two-stroke lawnmower, and we've mixed gas before. But when you get to mopeds, there's a couple other things to think about. The same basic principle applies though. If you put too little oil in your gas, you run lean, you run too hot, and you risk seizing or other damage to your piston and cylinder. If you use too much oil, you run too rich, and then you risk fouling spark plugs, and you create an excess of carbon buildup on top of your piston. That's also not great either. So the first thing I'd like to talk about is oil injection, because that might mean that this video might not apply to you at all. Now, as you can see, in my moped garage right now, I've got a couple bikes. Obviously not all these are mine. Oh, how I wish they were though. But anyway, still none of these bikes have oil injection. And that was a feature that came about to kind of make things easier for people who weren't really into mopeds or motorcycles. Basically, you have a reservoir full of two-stroke oil, and that automatically feeds it into the engine at the right amount. So all you have to do is fill up at the pump and you're set. So here's my take on oil injection systems. It seems like people either swear by them or swear at them. If you have a vintage oil injection system, for example one on a Honda Express or one on a Carelli or a Puch, those are the big ones I've seen that came with oil injection. Like some Puch Magnum Mark II models had it, some 2-speed Carellis that were on the upper end had it, and the Honda Express had it, any other models that had it. The vintage ones, in that case, if I owned one, I would be more inclined to delete the system and just run straight premix. I mean, it's definitely up to you, and you're probably fine, but that's not a risk that I would take personally. So if you have a more modern bike, maybe one made in the past 15 years, I'm speaking to you Tomos owners right here, I would be much more inclined to keeping that system. So that means us riders without oil injection have to premix. This is not a bad thing in my mind, but before we can even get to talking about these red gas tanks, it's worth mentioning one more thing. So another way some people like to mix their gas is they'll use the oil mixing cup located on the underside of their gas cap. If you remember in my derusting video, I actually found mine in the bottom of my tank. I don't have it with me right now, but the basic idea is that it would be something that would hang kind of like this. And the idea is that you fill your tank up at the pump, you fill this with the proper amount of two-stroke oil, there's usually markers on the side, you dump that in, then you're good to go. I'm not the biggest fan of this. I'm not totally sold that it really mixes all that well in the tank. People do it and they do it with a decent amount of success. I'm not going to knock it, but once again, that's something that I would personally not do. Yes, I understand I'm going to catch some criticism about that. I understand that the manufacturer put that oil mixing cup there for a reason. However, I'm just a very meticulous person when it comes to making sure my fuel is mixed up as well as it can be. So before I show you how I make a gallon of gas, there's one final thing I'd like to talk about. This is another topic that's definitely open to debate. So on some bikes, you're given a sticker which just tells you right off exactly what mixture to use. On the Malaguti, this one gives you instructions here, after break-in period, to run 25 to 1. My buddy Nate's Carelli is over at my place right now because we're doing some clutch work on that rubber clutch. But that will be another video for another time. Now on his bike, after break-in period, it tells him to run it at 32 to 1. So here's my take on it. This is what Nate runs, and this is what I tell all of my friends to run on their vintage mopeds. I tell them all to run their mopeds at 50 to 1. Why do I do this? Here's why. So here's a few bottles of 2-cycle oil I have lying around. I'm not endorsing any specific brand here, but I just want to make a point that even if you went out and bought the Walmart stuff, like the Super Tech, the cheapest stuff you could, that oil would likely be light years ahead of the two-stroke oil they were selling in the 1970s. That and also the quality of the gasoline as well. But what I'd like to focus on here is the oil. I feel like if you ran a ratio of say 25 to 1, that would be really, really rich and with a modern two-stroke oil, and you'd be fouling spark plugs pretty quick. This is just my opinion on this, but Once again, I run all of my mopeds on 50 to 1. And for me to make a statement like, oh, I run them all on 50 to 1 and I've been fine, that wouldn't be an appropriate statement for me to make, because people can run all kinds of lean ratios and get by. So once again, especially because I buy the higher quality two-stroke oils, I feel that running 50 to 1 on all my mopeds won't do me any harm. Now, of course, it's your bike and you're free to run whatever ratios you wish, but that's my take on the subject. Okay, well, my 1 gallon tank is empty right now, so I'm going to show you guys how I mix up a gallon of two-stroke fuel. So I make sure my can is 100% empty before I start fueling it, and I make sure I get exactly 1 gallon. And since I mix all my mopeds to 50 to 1, I actually keep this bottle around. This stuff ran out a while ago, but it's got a handy dandy measure mark right here, which is 2.6 ounces, and that's the ratio you need to mix for 1 gallon of gasoline to get 50 to 1. So it's probably a good idea to be consistent with the brand you use for two-stroke oil, but I'm not going to endorse any particular brand. This stuff right here has been really good to me. And as I mentioned earlier in the video, you can run like the Walmart brand oils or the gas station stuff, but just keep in mind that that's probably going to lead to a little bit more carbon buildup on your piston and in your exhaust. And if you're okay deep carbonizing, going and doing that, that's fine. I think I'm even familiar with somebody on Moped Army who buys like those 2 gallon things of like marine two-stroke oil just because it's pretty cheap to do it that way, which, I mean, you can do. Then I have another friend of mine who buys Royal Purple two-stroke. That's crazy. That's like $11 a bottle, but he doesn't ride that much, so that works for him. Alright, so that's filled right up to the line there. I actually learned you can like add back into these kind of bottles. You just got to turn them and squeeze the right way. I don't really have enough patience to do that. It's a little bit easier just to top it off like this and get 2.6 ounces. Down the hatch. And then this is just something I do with every batch I make. I add a little bit of Marvel Mystery Oil here for good luck. Just a splash. So yeah, then I give it a couple shakes like so. I also do this right before I go to put it in any of my mopeds if it's been sitting for more than a few days. So YouTube, that's how I mix up a gallon of two-stroke fuel. I hope that answered any questions you might have. And until next time.